Hey, everyone, come on in, come on in, come on in. We're going to go live on Instagram right now as well. So give me a second. We're going to go on ahead and come on in. I don't know why my Instagram is cutting up right now, but we are definitely going to be live right now. And all right, we're going live on Instagram. Come on in, everybody. All right, we've started our live. Hello, hello, hello. Good evening. This is Naja Young, and I want to thank you all for joining me this evening. For those of you who don't know, my name is Naja Young, and I have an MFA in film production from Florida State University. Okay, go Noles, all that good stuff. And on top of that, I am also a filmmaker, an educator, and to be more specific, a writer and director, as well as a producer. So this evening, what we're going to be talking about is the Serpent and the Rainbow. Let's go ahead and get started in just a moment. We're going to give people a chance to come on in. How are you all doing this evening? If you're here, let me know you're here. Say hello, say something. I should be able to see you in my comments if you are on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram. So come on in, come on in. I'm going to share this to one more platform. Come on in, come on in. Thank you all for joining me. What's up, Victor Newman? I'm not going to say your real name, boo-boo. But thank you for coming on in. Today, we're going to be talking about, of course, Serpent and the Rainbow, which is a 1988 horror classic directed by Wes Craven, who is the horror master, some would say, especially as it refers to filmmaking. So today, that's what we're going to be talking about. And more specifically, we're talking about how Hollywood portrays voodoo in this particular case and all African traditional religions. Remember, we're doing this every week, weekly, on these platforms to sort of discuss the themes and images that are present in these films and how well the filmmakers do in representing African traditional spiritual practices or African spiritual practices of the African diaspora. That's the word for you right there, diaspora. Okay, so let me go ahead and get this shared to another platform so that everyone who wants to join us can join us. If you're here, please make sure you say hello. Make sure you say hello. What's up, my bro, Indie Glow Image? I'm not saying people's government names on here because people like to protect their privacy, and I understand that. But for those of you who are just joining us, again, my name is Naja Young. Okay. Hi. Hey, how you doing? I'm glad that you joined us today, Miss McFarland. Okay. So I'm glad to see so much of the family here this evening. Tell my girlies their auntie loves them. We got a play date coming up soon, very soon. So, all right. Glad you're checking in while at bike night. What I want you all to do is go ahead, like and share this on your platforms as well. We're going to start talking about, of course, Serpent and the Rainbow. And Serpent and the Rainbow is one of my favorite films. For those of you who don't know, I am definitely a filmmaker. I'm definitely a cinephile. I love film. I can discuss film all day long. And I want you all to understand that I've actually studied this for quite some time, both formally and informally. So, hello, Brandon Javon, one of my astute former students is joining us as well. So, Drum Woman, thank you for joining us. All right, we're going to get started in just a moment, giving people just a little bit of time to get in here, sharing this to another platform of mine as well, so that we can get as many live comments as possible. Also, I want to say to you all, if you want to join the conversation, you want to be added in, please let me know. I will definitely go ahead and add you in here as well. So I'm just sharing this and trying to multitask, which is what I attempt to do all the time. Gonna share this to another feed. Of course, I can't do everything at once. If you're here this evening, give me a wave, give me a shout, give me a holler. Let me know that you're here. As a matter of fact, let me know where you're joining us from this evening. Let me know where you're joining us from this evening. All right. Of course, in the face of technology right now, I, for some reason, can't do what I want to do. But I'm going to go ahead and share this again on another platform. Let people know we are here. We are here. We are here. All right. All right. Finally got it shared, and I can turn that screen off now that I know that it is shared. So if you're on Facebook, you're on Instagram, you are on YouTube, let me know that you're there. I want to thank you all for joining me this evening. We're going to go ahead and get started right now because it's 7:07 and we ain't leaving no bodies on the floor. All right. So as I've been doing this, I wanted to get you all, give you all a peek into my personality. I love film. I can discuss film all day long. And I'm passionate about film. And more importantly, I'm passionate about the way that Black people and Black women and people who are practitioners of African spirituality, people of the African diaspora are portrayed in film. And yes, all of those things. So those are the things that are closest and dearest to me. And the reason being is because I'm Black, I'm a woman, I'm a member of the African diaspora. And more importantly, I am also African traditional spiritual practitioner. This video and all the videos that I'm doing this month is not about proselytizing. It's not about trying to convince you to do anything other than be yourself, but also think critically about the images that you're seeing on film and television as it relates to anything Black or anything dealing with African spirituality or the African diaspora. So when I say diaspora, what am I talking about? I am referring to all of those people who came out of Africa. And usually when we talk about this, so everyone can sit back and go, oh, everybody came out of Africa. So when you talk about the diaspora, you're talking about everybody. Don't be daft. Okay, let's not play with one another. That's not exactly what I'm talking about. What I am actually talking about is those people who are Black identified, who are of African descent, whose ancestry and lineages for the last 2,000 years or so come out of Africa, who are still Black identified. So that is what I am talking about when I talk about the Black diaspora or the African diaspora, if you will. So again, if you're here, you're listening, you're paying attention, go ahead, let me know that you're still there. We're going to start our conversation talking about the 1988 film by Wes Craven, The Serpent and the Rainbow. Now, one of the first things I wanted to tell you all is that we are only discussing the film. The film is actually inspired by a book also called The Serpent and the Rainbow. And if I'm not mistaken, it was written by Wade Davis, okay? And his experiences. Now, I haven't read the book. Will I read the book? If I get a chance, I will. I have a lot of projects on my plate, much like everybody else. We out here surviving, living in good times for real. So I'm not sure I'm going to have time to actually read the book, but it's something that's on my list that I may want to read in the future. Um, when you're talking about films that have been adapted from a book, it's important for you all to realize that a couple of things are going to happen. First of all, adaptations are usually not word for word. They're just not word for word. There's no way we can take a 300-page book or a 400-page book and get that down to, let's say, 90 to 120 pages for a script for a film. Okay, so we have to make cuts. There's also things that we have to do, like poetic license. We have to dramatize things for people, because if we were to just do something like, okay, word for word translation, this is what happens. Sometimes when you're reading a book, if you guys notice, for those of you who are book readers, there's a lot of backstory and information we do not necessarily need. Okay, we spend a lot of times on details that don't necessarily propel the story forward, right? But it might paint in some little details here and there. It's an aside, and you get all these different things that, if we're talking about making this a movie, I'm not going to spend, let's say, 3 or 4 pages describing the bougainvillea going up the side of a mansion on St. Charles Avenue. I'm referring to Anne Rice, because Anne Rice knows she could take and go ahead and describe stuff to the point where my head would be like, can we just get to the action? What is happening? So I think I've always been like a filmmaker at heart. Like, give me some action. What's going on? Because I would read that and be like, oh my God. Oh, Toni Morrison is another one. Toni will get you off into some details and minutia, and you'll be like, I'm sorry, what was this? What was this chapter about again? I don't quite remember. Oh yeah, that's what we were talking about. So that's what I'm saying. So what we're going to do is, we're talking about this Serpent and the Rainbow, right? So 1988, the film comes out. Again, it is based on the book Serpent and the Rainbow by Wade Davis. The film is directed by Wes Craven. For those of you who don't know, Wes Craven is like a horror auteur. Okay, so when we use the term auteur, 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 it really is a French word that means author, right? But when we call someone that's a filmmaker an auteur, what we're really saying is they have such a distinct voice that we look at their films and we can know immediately by looking at the film, looking the way it is shot, that this is in their style. They have created and defined a style all their own as a filmmaker. So Wes Craven is what we would call a horror auteur. We know him mainly for horror films. And the interesting thing about The Serpent and the Rainbow is, if it was directed by someone else who was not in the horror genre, primarily known for horror, we probably would have had a significantly different film. And that is because Wes Craven is known for horror. Horror is what he does. He loves jump scares. He loves creatures. And for those of you who are like, well, who is Wes Craven? Let me just let you know. So what's up, Lotus Bomb Flower? Wes Craven is the one who directed Nightmare on Elm Street. He directed a ton of things, but the Nightmare on Elm Street is one of those that comes to mind. So to let you know who this director is, I'm just going to give you a few more films that he directed. And Dracula, 2000, Scream, let's see, Cursed, Red Eye, Scream 2, The New Nightmare. Yeah, I'm just going down the list here because he is known for horror. That is what people know him for. Let's see. He also did a number of television shows as well. But Vampire in Brooklyn, which, love that film. Might have to talk about that later too. There is a little kind of voodoo, African spiritualism, mysticism that was included in Vampire in Brooklyn, though it wasn't a major part of the film. He also directed Shocker. He directed, like I said, Nightmare on Elm Street, The Hills Have Eyes, Part 2. All of those great horror films that all of us love. The Last House on the Left. if you're into horror, you know who this guy is. If you've seen any one of these films, you know who this dude is. Okay. So we know who Wes Craven is. All right. So if the film would have been directed by someone else who was not known for horror, and let's say the film was directed by someone like Spike Lee, or the film was directed by, let's say, Catherine Bigelow or something like that, this film would have been a different film. But because it was directed by Wes Craven, he definitely took his time to amp up a lot of the horror or scariness, if you will, for lack of a better term, in this film. Now, The Serpent and the Rainbow takes place primarily in Haiti. Okay. So the film starts off with the doctor played by Bill Pullman in the Amazon jungle, and he's with a group of indigenous people in the Amazon jungle, and he goes through a sort of vision quest, and it foreshadows what is to happen to him going to Haiti. Okay. So it gives us a hint of what is going on. If you have issues with any term that I'm saying, you're like, what does that mean? Elaborate. By all means, let me know. But he goes from the Amazon jungle. He's sent then from Harvard to go to Haiti to look for, to do research. And his research is on zombies. And so while this sounds far-fetched, this is not actually far-fetched. There are people who go around the world and study indigenous medicines and different herbs and plants that are used by native peoples to see if they can synthesize these drugs to help more people and to, let's be honest, make money. Okay, so that's why this doctor was sent to Haiti in the first place, because they wanted to figure out how were people making zombies, this phenomenon of zombies. Now, let me talk about that term zombie. So when we think of zombie, we think of zombie as zombie, zombie, right? But zombie actually is a bastardization of the word in zombie, okay? And the reason why I'm telling you this is because everything means something, okay? Everything means something, and everything comes from somewhere. Okay. And the reason why I'm saying everything comes from somewhere is because a lot of times these films that have African traditional spiritual systems in it, whether it be voodoo, whether it be Santeria, Lukumi, Ifa, whatever it is, Palo, they give it to you in this context like it just came up out of nowhere. Okay, it comes out of nowhere. It doesn't have any historical significance. It is something kind of made up. Okay, and that is not the truth. Okay, so the term Nzambi actually comes from what they say the Bantu languages, okay, of the Congo. Now, we can get into much deeper etymology, that is the study of that word. But what I wanted to let you know is that that word zombie is a bastardization of another word, just like the term voodoo is a bastardization of the word vodou, Vodou. And vodou actually comes from the people of Dahomey, which is now known as Benin in West Africa. Okay. There is some overlap of some deities with neighboring ethnic groups or tribes. However, this Vodou particularly comes from the people of Benin, formerly the kingdom of Dahomey. Okay. So again, these religions ain't just made up. They don't just come out of nowhere, and they certainly don't come out of Europeans or whites' imagination. Okay, they have real origins and real roots. Now, what comes out of white or colonial imaginations is the characterization of voodoo and all these indigenous or African religions, okay, or spiritual belief systems. Now, I do not make myself out to be any sort of expert. So if you look in here for me to break down every single thing or to speak about Vodou as if I am a practitioner or an expert. I am not doing that. I'm simply looking at the themes and images and how it is portrayed within these films and breaking that down for you. If you wish to have deeper study, want to know more, by all means, pardon me, go ahead and do that. Okay, I invite you to do that. You should study on your own. You should definitely make sure that you're not just taking things at face value. Unfortunately, anything that indigenous people or native peoples do, spirituality wise, has been demonized by colonialists, white culture, European culture, and ipso facto, all of those who have been colonized by them. So that includes some African peoples as well, who literally eschew anything to do with their traditional belief systems. Okay. So if you're looking for a greater understanding, wider understanding, I salute you. By all means, go ahead and do that. You should do that. I want everyone to become a critical thinker and not just be sheep led by anyone. So let's break down these images. The name of the film, The Serpent and the Rainbow. So from my research, and again, I'm not an expert because I am a traditional African spirituality practitioner. Understand that each of these systems are different systems of belief. There is some similarity, but there are also differences. Just like you would have differences between, hey Jabri, just like you would have differences between a Protestant and a Catholic, a Baptist and a Lutheran. There are differences between these traditional African belief systems. There are different names for God. There's a different name for the deities as well. They may have similar attributes, but these are all separate and distinct deities. And all of these different belief systems have separate and distinct methods and methodology and cosmology. So we are going to respect that. That's what we're going to do. We're going to respect that. And we're not going to lump everyone all together and say it's all the same. And unfortunately, that's one of the biggest problems with Hollywood is anything African, they call voodoo. And it ain't voodoo. All of it is not voodoo. Okay. Now, when we talk about voodoo in the context of the film, The Serpent and the Rainbow, it takes place in Haiti. Haiti has become synonymous with voodoo, but understand that voodoo comes from Benin. Okay, Vodou, traditional belief system of people in Benin, particularly, if I'm not mistaken, the Fon, Fon. Okay, there are many different ethnic groups. They have different belief systems. Okay, but this specific ethnic group was during transatlantic slavery brought to Haiti. They kept their belief systems. We kept our belief systems wherever we went as African peoples. Don't let people tell you that we didn't. Some survived more than others, depending on where we were and the number of people that were there. Haiti, in doing my research, they estimate that unofficially, at least half of the population in Haiti are voodoo practitioners or believers in some way, shape, or form. And this does not, it just means that, and I want to clarify again, this doesn't mean that they're devil worshipers, it doesn't mean that they're evil. They just practice their traditional belief system brought with them from Africa. The serpent and the rainbow figure pretty prominently in Vodou spirituality. So the rainbow is called the serpent. And if we think about how a rainbow appears to us, it's like this. It's a semicircle, right? So they say that is the serpent, all right? And creation comes out of that rainbow, from what I understand, okay? And again, all of these, this is a part of that cosmology, all right? Now, when we look at the film, we also see some other indigenous cosmology, although they don't get specific, but the main character played by Bill Pullman goes on a vision quest. And during this vision quest, he meets his spirit animal, which is a jaguar. And this figures prominently in the film because the jaguar is the spirit that ends up protecting him. And that's what the indigenous Native American shaman does is introduce him to his spirit animal and protects him, right? Does a spiritual ritual with him. And he takes back this sort of potion that was made for him and takes it back to the people he works for at Harvard and this biomedical company so that they can try to synthesize it and learn its secrets. He goes to Haiti to do the same thing. There, of course, he meets a beautiful Black psychologist or psychiatrist, I should say, and girlfriend, she works in an asylum. She helps people who are mentally ill, but at the same time, she is a priestess of Erzuli. So who is Erzuli? Erzuli is this voodoo Loa. So Loa is a deity, okay? And in that spirituality, from what I understand, there are no angels, there are no demons. You have Loa, you have deities that are ordained by God, created by God to assist God in its duties. So there is a supreme God, and then you have Loas, okay? And so the Loa Erzuli is thought of as beautiful, goddess of love, wealth, very feminine sort of energy. Now, understand this as well. See, you see my whole spirit is, I'm talking to my God, one of my God sisters on here, Danto Frida, and another. That's right. There are different roads of Erzuli or different types of Erzuli. But in this film, it was more like Erzuli Frida, which was more about love and passion than Erzuli Danto. Okay. So when I'm saying that, I'm saying that there are these deities have different faces, if you will. They have different attributes. Okay. So you might be, as this character was in the film, this Black psychiatrist, she was a priestess of Erzuli. But if we're being serious and going deeper, you have to, we would have to see which road of Erzuli she actually was initiated to. All right. So she's in the film, and one of the most significant scenes that I loved is, she goes to a nightclub and introduces Bill Pullman's character to Paul Winfield's character, Lucien, who is a boku. He is a priest in the voodoo religion, if you will. And as a boku, he also owns a nightclub, and it's filled with white tourists, and they're doing or performing a ritual for these white tourists that are there. And Bill Pullman's character is there as well. And so he looks at the Black doctor and he goes, "Surely you're going to dance for Erzuli tonight." And she's like, "No, I don't want to do that." No, because she's not really there for that. And one thing I respect about that character is that as a psychiatrist, she has great dialogue. So shout out to the screenwriters of this film, because they actually put some gems in here that pay homage to and respect to voodoo as a religion, as a spirituality. She says, "Listen, I didn't come here for that." Meaning she didn't come here to put on a show for white tourists. She also in the film says that her science is not in conflict with her belief. In their Western spirituality, God lives in heaven. In this spirituality, God lives within you. And I was like, girlfriend got some gems. And when I was younger and saw this film, all of that went over my head. I was just mainly looking at, look at them with this ooga booga, of course, this, what I'm saying, this bastardization of voodoo. But when I really started to listen, I was like, okay, all right. Okay, the filmmakers, all right, they did that. They did that, okay? The screenwriters did that. So who's in charge of dialogue? That's your screenwriters, okay? Now, shameless plug, I do teach screenwriting, and my website is on my page on Facebook and YouTube and all of that stuff. and even an Instagram in my bio. So I do teach screenwriting, but when you're thinking about who came up with the dialogue, it's the screenwriters, okay? And they did a wonderful job with that, because even though some of the imagery contradicted what was being said, she had very important lines talking about voodoo and its beauty, its spirituality. But in this particular scene, of course, she gets possessed by Erzuli because the music draws her in. And as she was dancing and everything, the actress's name was Kathy. I can't think of her last name, but she did the damn thing because her eyes went vacant. And I mean, she was dancing for Erzuli, and I was feeling it myself. So for those of you who all don't know, I grew up in a household where my mother taught African dance and dances of the African diaspora. And so it made me think of my mother when she taught Yanvalou, and we performed Yanvalou, which is a Haitian dance based on a voodoo ceremony. And so when I'm watching this, when Kathy is dancing, the actress, she is mesmerizing, and she's dancing beautifully, elegantly. And one thing I will say about this film in comparison to Angel Heart is when they did some of the ceremonial stuff, it looked authentic. It looked authentic. And it wasn't trying to be scary. So one thing that Wes Craven did here, and this is what a director does, is he didn't make every scene that had voodoo in it or a voodoo ritual in it. He didn't make every scene scary. So it made, when he did make something scary, it stood out more, as opposed to, you know what I'm saying? Everything's just scary as it relates to voodoo. He didn't do that. Okay. So at the nightclub, she's dancing and everything, and it's beautiful and it's elegant, and people are dancing around a peristyle, which looks like it was a tree in this particular case, but in some cases it'll be a column decorated in the middle of the ceremonial space. So because this is a nightclub, it's outside, they're dancing around a peristyle that looks like a tree, and it's decorated, and they're dancers, and they're in beautiful red costumes and white costumes. And the doctor now has on her pink head wrap, and she's dancing around the peristyle, and she is got her perfume in her hand, okay, because Erzuli loves perfume, and she has her mirror in her hand, okay, because Erzuli is beautiful. Why wouldn't she want to look at herself? Black woman, you need to be looking at yourself with your fine self, okay? And so she dancing and all of these things. And then the evil Boku, or the one who practices black magic, okay, yeah, that's the term that they use in the film. He's there. He starts beating on the glass, and the rhythm changes. And one of the dancers, male dancers, gets possessed by something. And he is no longer in control of his body. Something possesses him. And that's because the rhythm changes. Now, one thing I did appreciate is that they recognize that when the rhythm changes, the vibe changes within these traditional ceremonies. So again, it goes back to this. Look, stuff just don't happen at these ceremonies, African traditional ceremonies. Some things are unpredictable, yes. However, when you go to mass in a Catholic church, you know you're going to genuflect when you come in. You're going to make the sign of the cross, dip your hands in the holy water and make the sign of the cross. You walk up, you genuflect in front of the altar. Then you take your seat. And at some point, you're going, peace be with you and also unto you. You know, all of that stuff. There is an order to the ceremony. And so that is my point. There is an order to the ceremony. I don't care if we're talking about a Santeria ceremony, a Lukumi ceremony, or a voodoo ceremony in this case. And so when rhythms change, energy changes. So that is something that I absolutely enjoyed watching that in this film, even though this whole idea of this guy practices black magic. You have that, the rhythm changes, the guy gets possessed, he starts attacking people. Paul Winfield, who plays the good Boku or voodoo priest, comes, puts a black cloth over the man's face. The man goes down so that the possession can definitely go ahead and leave him. So we have that went on. Again, what I do like is that you had the juxtaposition of good and bad. You didn't have voodoo just from a lens of it bad, voodoo bad, it's evil. No, you had a person who was a practitioner. This person who was a evil practitioner was also a member of the Tantamakut. So for those of you who don't know and don't, y'all wasn't living during this era. Your girl was. I ain't gonna tell y'all how old I was, but in 1985, where the film is set, Haiti actually has its second dictator, if you will, um, Jean Baby Doc Duvalier. Okay, they call him Baby Doc because his father was the Doc Duvalier, who was another dictator. And so Baby Doc Duvalier was the dictator in Haiti at this time, and he had secret police called the Tantamakut. Okay. I'm glad that you found this, Faustian man. Thank you for joining us. Like, comment, share. Um, hey, Chief Oya 9. I'm not using people's government name because I know y'all like y'all privacy and what have you. But what up, sis? Glad to see you here. What's up, Before Storm? Glad to see you here. So the Tantamakut were the secret police, okay? If we had to liken them to someone, think of the Gestapo, Nazi Gestapo, right? They wreaked terror throughout Haiti. They were part of the secret police. People were abducted during this time. There was no political dissent that was being allowed. You had dictators who were running rampant. Baby Dr. Duvalier was just raping Haiti blind. The people were suffering. And the evil person, the evil Boku or priest, was a member of Duvalier's Tantamakut and was using his power as a general, if you will, in the Tantamakut, in conjunction with being an evil practitioner, an evil Boku priest. Okay. Now, I like that. I like that there was a juxtaposition. We had good practitioners, we had bad practitioners, but we also had the image of some of the Loa as being evil, like Papa Samadi. Let me think of the name. I hate when I do that. So in the film and in some of my advertisements, what you have seen is you saw the image of the man who had on a black top hat. Baron Samadi. Baron Samadi. Okay. So Baron Samadi is a Haitian Loa. Okay. It's a voodoo Loa. And Baron Samadi had on the top hat. His face was painted like a skull. He has on the overcoat and everything like that. All right. Yeah. Olori wa ama. Yes. Oui. Baron Samadi. Baron Samadi is a prominent image that you see within this film. Baron Samedi is said to escort people from life to death, among many other things. If you watched American Horror Story third season with the witches, they used some of that same imagery there, even though that character was allegedly Papa Legba. And I say allegedly, and that's because what happens when people dramatize or use any African-based spirituality in their Hollywood films or television shows, what happens is this bastardization where they kind of lump multiple characters together. Hey, I'm okay. Thanks for joining us. So they lump multiple deities together into one. Okay. And it just sort of, in doing so, it loses its veracity. It's no longer true, right? It is no longer true. But in Serpent and the Rainbow, one of the Tantamakut is dressed up like Baron Samedi, okay? And he's escorting people, got guns to people's heads. He's doing this and doing that. And they never quite explain who he is as a figure. But of course, because we smart and we filmmakers, we know that if we see that image more than once, we know that, hey, Manaba, good to see you. We know that that character or that image is significant. So when you're watching a film and you see they keep repeating the same like image, 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 it is telling you something. It's foreshadowing something, or it is significant enough that it's supposed to be foreboding. It's always there. So with having Baron Samedi there, or the image of Baron Samedi, it's saying that death is always present, at least in my estimation. Death is always present. Okay. So throughout the film, we see that imagery. We also see a lot of skulls, human skulls, just random places where I'm just like, that skull didn't need to be there. Like, why we got a human skull right there? Well, part of it is that Wes Craven was the director. So Wes Craven loves some gore. He loves a gotcha moment in there, a jump scare. So he's got these images in there that are not necessarily related to the actual spiritual belief system. It's there because it makes it look cool by making it look scary or foreboding. Okay. Whenever any one of us see a rotting corpse, a dead body, or anything like that, that imagery, it messes with us, right? It messes with your spirit. You'll be like, no good can come of this. No good can come of this. Look at that. Oh, it's got a skull right there. So the skull thing, and these are partial skulls, whole skulls, and a lot of the different scenes that have voodoo ceremonies there. Even the scene with the good voodoo practitioners, you'll see a skull there. You'll see different things on the altars there. Some things there are true historical significance and spiritual significance for it, and other things, a skull, I think they're just doing it really kind of to just give you that sense of foreboding, make you scared. Ooh, they got a skull. Ooh, because God forbid anyone ever go ahead and give an African traditional spiritual system too much of a green light, or give it too much reverence. Even though, like I said, in the film, the screenwriting, they did a pretty good job of making this in such a way where even a learned Black woman, a scientist herself, appreciated, accepted, and had reverence for her voodoo beliefs. All right. Another image that this comes up pretty prominently in the film, of course, is zombies. And I told you it comes from the term zombie comes from a bastardization of the word in zombie. Okay. In some languages, in zombie is actually the creator, the supreme God, the creator of heaven and earth, and all that is within it. Okay. But zombie, what happens when people don't understand language, don't understand religion, don't understand or have reverence or respect for what it is they see? They bastardize what it is you do. Plain and simple. So we're going to go ahead and bastardize that word zombie. So it becomes in zombie. Okay. And when we think about the zombie in Hollywood films, we got to take this all the way back to the 1930s and 40s when we first started to see zombies. Okay. Zombies are thought of as mindless. They're thought of as in earlier films, zombies are thought of as mindless, and they eat people. Okay. They destroy all that they see. They eat people. And in some cases, being a zombie is actually contagious. Okay. Especially when we think of modern day zombies, when we think of The Walking Dead, those are zombies. iZombie, all of these different things. What is it? Warm hearts. Being a zombie is something that becomes contagious. Right? So when we think of the zombie in modern day senses, it's a contagious disease. Mindless people, they eat people. They cannot help it. They cannot be reasoned with. When we think about zombie in the sense of how Hollywood portrays voodoo, in particular in the film The Serpent and the Rainbow, the zombie is mindless. They have been traumatized. Oh, Night of the Living Dead, great, Brandon, great example as well. Again, mindless. The dead have risen. Now, in Serpent and the Rainbow, what they find out is that these people were never actually dead. They were never actually dead, but they were given a powerful paralytic that made them appear to be dead. They appeared to be dead. So, because they appeared to be dead, they are buried alive. Now, you talk about scary. It is an innate fear for a human being to be buried alive. We are all afraid of being buried alive, right? Can you imagine being alive and then you're buried and now you're clawing in your coffin trying to get out? Now, it was such a great fear during medieval times in Europe that what they used to do was had a person that actually sat at the graveyard with the body to make sure it was dead, and they put a string in there tied to a bell. And if the person woke up and was still in their coffin, they could ring the bell so people could let them out. Because, medieval knowledge of freaking medicine, they ain't really know what it was all a guessing game. All right. Hell, they used to bleed people to get rid of diseases and different things like that. So that's what happened in medieval Europe. They usually had a person sitting there in the graveyard with this dead body that was buried. And if you were buried and you woke up in your coffin, you could ring the bell and somebody would dig you out. Then when you had the vampire craze, right, what they would do is if they thought someone was the undead, meaning they had died, but then they came back and now they're bloodsuckers, right? So they would come back. People would dig you up from the graveyard and they would stake you again. Okay. Again, this is all coming back from the fear of being buried alive and what happens when you're buried alive. In The Serpent and the Rainbow, what happens when people are buried alive is that they lose their minds. They're alive, but they're unwell, and they consider themselves to be enslaved to the person who blew this dust on them. So in the film, they blow a dust on you that has powerful paralytics in it from real animals. And by the way, this has been studied that this dust that is created by bokus, who are, of course, voodoo priests and shaman healers, herbalists, actually has toxic paralytics in it that will paralyze your entire body, including your respiratory system, and take your heartbeat so low that it is undetectable. Okay. And you're completely conscious at the same time. I don't know about you all, but I used to suffer from sleep paralysis as a child. It is no joke. It's the scariest thing you will ever experience in your life. Okay. So in the film, people are buried alive, and when they come back, they are mentally unwell. Now, you think about being buried alive, you would be mentally unwell yourself. Okay. You wouldn't be all right in the head either. But in this film, yes. Oh, yeah, Lori, that's right. Hence the term saved by the bell. The bell would save you if you were buried alive. Okay. So when we talk about, again, these themes and images we have present in The Serpent and the Rainbow, it is about being buried alive. It is about actually on the coffins, you have a crucifix. The interesting thing about these films is that Catholicism or Christianity cannot save you in these films. It didn't save you in Angel Heart, and it did not save you in Serpent and the Rainbow. Also in these films, what we have to talk about is something called syncretism, okay? Or syncreticism, okay? So what that means is that people are practicing their indigenous belief system, in this case, an African belief system, but they may also be either hiding their religion behind these deities, the Loa, behind Catholic saints. Okay, you'll see the same thing in some Lukumi practitioners or Santeria practitioners. So in those religions, if you will, or spiritual beliefs, let's take Saint Barbara, is used to as a symbol of Shango, Kawo Kabiesi. Okay. So it was a way for people to practice their indigenous belief systems without alerting colonial masters, European masters, that they were still practicing that true old time religion. Okay. So in this film, you see that happening. You also see people practicing both. They practice their indigenous belief system, voodoo, and they go to Catholic church. And then it's all in some areas of the film, they have it sort of mixed together. Like they have a procession where the Virgin Mary is taken to a sacred watering spot. And you have people processing and they're holding this white Virgin Mary. Now, the interesting thing is are people seeing that as the Virgin Mary, or is that Virgin Mary merely a representation of a voodoo loa? When we think about this, I want you to think about the New Year's Day celebration in Brazil. In Brazil, they have the Virgin Mary on a boat. They take her to the ocean. They make offerings. All of these flowers are taken out into the ocean. But that's a Iemanjá festival. The Virgin Mary represents the Yoruba deity Iemanjá, or Iemanjá, if you are speaking with a Portuguese Brazilian accent. Yes? So that figure of the Virgin Mary, or that figure of the saint, is really representative of an African deity. It was just a way to fool and disguise this from the European colonialists, from those who enslaved them, right? So we had a leg up on that. Like I said, never forget, we did not abandon all of our belief systems when we were forcibly brought to the New World as enslaved people. We didn't stop being who we are, no matter how much someone beat it out of us. And in places where Africans were the majority, you see a little bit more outward retention. Okay, you see more of that outward retention. When I say outward retention, it's in the public. People, do more public ceremonies. There's a public acknowledgement by those of African descent and European descent of these African deities. Okay, and an understanding that we're gonna go with it. We're gonna do both. I know someone who is definitely European, definitely from Brazil, definitely grew up in Bahia, and he talks very affectionately about the Iemanjá festival and going every year. As a matter of fact, two of them going every year to the beach with their offering of flowers so that they would have a good and prosperous new year. And they are what we would consider to be white, okay? And they grew up in different parts of Brazil at that. So it's a part, and it's ingrained in certain cultures. In the United States, we also have those African retentions. We don't like to talk about it, or we don't acknowledge it as much, but every time you throw out a little liquor for the homies, those who've passed, you're doing a libation for your ancestors. You're doing a libation for the dead. You're presenting an offering. You go to the graveyard, you put flowers on that grave. That's an offering in reverence of your ancestors. And quite frankly, I don't see anything wrong with it. But back to the Serpent and the Rainbow. Because back to the Serpent and the Rainbow. So when we look at the Serpent and the Rainbow, we do have the juxtaposition of the good and the bad, the good Boku versus the bad Boku, good priest versus bad priest and practitioner. But you overwhelmingly have this sense of magic and supernatural elements, things that cannot be quantified, cannot be qualified, and cannot be controlled. Because once the Bill Pullman's character does finally get this zombie powder and takes it back to be studied, they're like, yes, all of these things definitely work, but there's still a little disconnect there. They can't tell you exactly how some of the elements work together. So what it tells you is that the person, and in the film, his name was Louis Mossar, there is some knowledge that just cannot be gained from a scientific formula. Like, you can take this element, you can take this formula, and you can go ahead. I know you loved him. Ethan says he loved throwing out a little liquor for the homies. That's right. Now you know. So, but when you take this element, you synthesize it, and you try to reproduce it, it cannot be reproduced in its entirety because there's some element missing. And that element missing is you. And that's the magic. right? So that's the magic that they were talking about. There's some element that is missing. In the film, you also have what are called veves. It's like sacred writing. And if you look at any sort of look at voodoo, you'll see these writings, these ornate writings and different things like that, that are inscribed on shrines, on walls of temples and different things like that. They're either for protection or for luck or a variety of things. In the film, you see random looking veves, but these veves, honestly, they're just very Hollywood. It looks like a little kid tried to draw a scary monster, and that's what they drew on the wall, which I actually appreciate, because I'm like, don't try to draw a veve. It's sacred. Okay, it's sacred to a group of people. So let's not make fun of it. But what they did was they also had a dead pig hanging above this man's bed and blood. These fake veves written all over the wall, looking like little kid monsters and different things like that. And I was just like, again, this is Wes Craven who directed it. So you're going to look at these jump scares. Yeah. Faustian Man just posted something really cool. He said, when filming, the writer met those people and said he wanted to become a zombie. I think they thought he was joking, and he had to be medically evac out because he lost his mind. This is very, very true. That part I did know. Woo! Caught it. Going back to Instagram. Sorry. Okay. Back on Instagram. So got excited and almost knocked over my other camera. So, all right. But you are correct. The issue with researchers or filmmakers or other artists coming in, exactly. So Iya Loriwa actually touches on this, is that people want to come in, they want to steal the magic, or they want to get the potion, but they don't go through initiation. They don't go through initiation. And you have to be initiated as a priest or priestess, in order for these things to actually work. And so the whole idea that you can come in and practice this magic and practice this and get the medicine and its healing powers without first being initiated is very colonial. It's given very European colonialism, right? It's like if somebody tries to, if I'm not an ordained priest and I'm trying to give you communion, and I say, take this is the body of Christ, da 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 da, take this cup and drink of it, this is the blood of Christ, blah, 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 blah. I'm not a priest. So therefore, I'm just giving you a cracker and wine according to the Catholic Church. Because if you're a Catholic, you have to believe in what is called transmutation, which is that thin wafer and that cup of wine become the actual blood and body of Christ. It's called transmutation. Okay? However, if I'm not a priest, I can't do that according to the Catholic Church. Also, I can't hear your confession, nor can I absolve you of your sins. Why? I'm not a priest. I don't have that power. I wasn't initiated as a priest within the Catholic Church. The same thing goes for these traditional belief systems of indigenous people around the world. You can't do that because you have not been initiated into this. There are certain mysteries, there are certain truths, there are certain practices that you will never be privy to because you weren't initiated into it. So initiation is very, very important. Okay. Also, by you not getting initiated and thinking you can walk in and just kind of steal the magic, if you will, or take this magic, it shows a lack of respect for the people and the tradition and the belief system. It's a fundamental lack of respect. Now, like I said, this film does a pretty good job of showing you good and bad. Now, I will say this, with the bad, I cannot speak to the veracity of the evil Boku practicing black magic. But what I can speak to is human nature. So if you have people who are doing good, you're going to have some people out there who want to do bad. I don't care what spiritual system it is, Christianity, Islam, you're going to have the good and the bad, right? Unfortunately, though, Hollywood likes to harp on the bad. This film, like I said, gives us 50-50. It gives us good, it gives us some bad, okay? You have practitioners who definitely don't believe in enslaving people mentally, because that's what the zombie was in the film. That zombie was enslaved mentally. Okay? That zombie was enslaved mentally and could not break free. And the representation of that in the film was these little pots that the evil Boku had. And he had also a personal effect from that person tied to that pot. And within that pot was their quote unquote soul. So at the end of the film, those souls are let free when those pots are broken. Who is the one who breaks the pots? Not the other voodoo practitioners. Oh, no. No, no. This is still a Hollywood film. The white man, played by Bill Pullman, is the one who ends up breaking the pots and freeing everyone's soul. Coincidence? I think not. I smell a rat. I smell a rat, people. So, because that is in the film, what is the film actually saying? That this white man, a colonialist, a person who is not from here, thank you, Brandon, classic white savior trope that we see in many of these films. Everybody else has been a lifelong practitioner, a priest, and everything else, but they cannot free themselves. They cannot do any of these things without the help of this white man who comes along and frees their everlasting souls at the end of this film. Also, he's imbued all of a sudden with these supernatural powers. The evil Boku has been burned to a crisp, jumps up like a ghoul or a zombie, a modern day zombie, and they still fighting. All of a sudden, this white man gets superhuman strength. He's able to command the chair. Where the man had tortured people and where he was tortured earlier, command this chair, get the man to sit down, get the straps, all with his eyes. It was very Carrie-esque, okay? And he, and then he, nails the man to the chair. And I'm like, now the black woman has been a priest of Erzuli most of her life and she can't do this? You mean to say she can't use her? She can't use her power to do this. But you've been studying this your whole life. He comes, Johnny come lately, ain't been initiated to nothing. And here we go. Y'all got to be kidding me. So that's where Hollywood loses me every single time. If it's not conflating indigenous belief systems with the devil, which in a lot of these pantheons and cosmologies, they don't believe in the devil. There is no devil. Then it's white savior comes to the rescue. Okay? And in the film, their freedom of these souls actually coincides with the overthrow of Baby Doc Duvalier's regime in Haiti, the overthrowing of that dictatorship. So it coincides at the same time. But my God, okay. Who was the most powerful Boku in the film? Well, I would have to say it was the evil Boku, which honestly, if you start breaking that down, that evil Boku or the so-called evil priest, he wasn't all evil because he wanted that man to leave. He was like, you are not going to export our magic to America for your gain or for the gain of some large corporation. He wasn't really, he had some, okay, he was a villain, but he wasn't all bad. When you think about it in those terms, that brother wasn't all bad. He had something. He was good. He was thinking about that. He didn't want their magic to be used by other people for their gain. That was for their people, okay? So we got to think about that. That villain wasn't all bad. What's interesting is the villain in Serpent and the Rainbow, and I want to say his name because When I tell you, so many of his lines were completely iconic, and I'm going to tell you his name in just a moment. He literally, I want your soul. I had a dream about him one time, and he said that to me. His name is Zakes Mokai, and I believe he's from South Africa. I'm just looking him up right now. And he lived for a long time, and he is from South Johannesburg, South Africa. He was initially a jazz saxophonist. So in this film, he plays the evil Boku. He also was in Vampire in Brooklyn. He played another sort of Boku or priest. In Vampire in Brooklyn, he didn't play an evil one, however. He was known for his collaborations with South African playwright, if you come from the theater like me, Athol Fugard. So, like Master Harold and the Boys, A Lesson for Aloes, Bozeman, and Lena. And let's see. He left South Africa in 1969. I'm bringing him up because I later found out the man lived in Pittsburgh, PA. And I grew up in Pittsburgh. And I absolutely love and adore him. Paul Winfield is also in this film. Absolutely love and adore Paul Winfield. Both of them rest in peace. There's a lot of people. Wes Craven is gone. Bill Pullman's gone. So these are all people where, they had a great influence on me. But when I found out Zakes Mokai was living in Pittsburgh at the same time I was living in Pittsburgh, I was like, I felt like I missed my opportunity to meet this man, this great man. And in my spirit, I feel like I met him before, or I maybe have been in the same room. When I was in high school, I won a contest for a human rights poetry contest. And the person who was one of the judges was Dennis Brutus, another South African artist and author who was teaching at the University of Pittsburgh. Toot toot, beep beep. Now look, I can go on and on about the film. So it's 8:07. We've been on here for an hour. I love and respect you all who've been riding with me all evening. I'm going to try to do this. Like I said, we have a couple more weeks of doing this. Next week, we're going to do this on Wednesday. Next week will be on Wednesday, and we'll be discussing another film. I haven't chosen it yet, but I got a couple in my mind. If there's a film in particular you want to discuss that has an African traditional spiritual belief system in there, or African diaspora belief system in there, and that you think we could discuss or should discuss, I want you all to go ahead and let me know. I hope I'm unfrozen. Am I unfrozen now? Let's see. I want you all to let me know. Let me know if there's another film you think that we should discuss. There are lots of others that I can discuss that have African spiritual practitioners in it. Devil's Advocate, Eve's Bayou, Vampire in Brooklyn. Let me think. Skeleton Key, The Believers. Oh, I might have to do The Believers because Jimmy Smits in there going, colabres, or cobres, or whatever he was saying. I mean, my brothers and I were just into it, right? I will check that out, Faustian Man. And hey, if you joined us this evening, give yourselves a round of applause. If you liked what you see, you go ahead and send your girl a little something, something. I ain't hard up for it, but this is something that I enjoy. This is something I love to do. For those of you who don't know, my name is Naja Young. I have an MFA, Master of Fine Arts, in film production from Florida State University. I'm also a writer, director, and producer of the independent film Blood First. You can see that on Tubi right now. You can rent it also on Amazon and a few other places. It is a hood film, it's gangsta-tastic, and it was my first feature film. I'm working on a couple of documentaries right now. I've had the pleasure of interviewing some of you for a documentary I worked on about 10 years ago. I am working on getting that out. Life happens despite your best intentions. So those things will be coming out very soon. Keep me in your prayers, positive thoughts, good energy. And again, thank you for joining me this evening. I'll be in the comments a little later if you have something more you want to say. And like, share, comment, subscribe. That's what I'm talking about. Have a good evening, guys. Love to you all.